if it doesn't light you up, it won't sell. And that is your sign to shift things in your business. Hi, I'm your host, Maggie Olson. I'm your business mentor, your human design expert, and the creator of the Magnetic Method Designed to Convert formula. I help women entrepreneurs just like you simplify their strategy, align their sales with their energy, and finally build a business that feels like freedom, not like pressure. After nearly 2 decades in entrepreneurship, I have learned that success isn't actually about doing more. It's about aligning with what already works for you, tapping into your natural energy. And here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast, we're going to blend human design with practical business strategy to help you attract clients naturally, sell with confidence, and grow with ease. So if you're ready to design a business that lights you up, converts with clarity, and learn more about working with me inside of the Magnetic Method mentorship and all of my other programs, you're going to find the link to all of that in the show notes, and you're going to find all of that information here on the podcast. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Tell me if your leads feel like a roller coaster. Like one week you are booked out, you're booked solid, and then the next week it feels like crickets. And I just want to say, if this is how you're feeling, it's not your funnel that is broken. It's actually your energy. And today we're going to get into why that is like that. So hello and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie and I'm your business mentor. I'm your lead gen and sales specialist and also your human design expert. And today, this week, we're talking about some of the energetic roots behind some of the biggest struggles that I see women entrepreneurs facing. And this week specifically, we're going to focus on inconsistent leads and some of the tech overwhelm, which really translates into feeling like things are so complicated by having either too many tools, not enough tools, or just not doing some of the tech behind the scenes at all. So I also just want to say that strategy alone does not fix inconsistency because inconsistency is a symptom of misalignment. And if you're hearing this and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe this, feel free to send me a DM because my job is to help you realign yourself. And by realigning yourself, I mean understanding your rhythms, how you work, figuring out your strategy that actually works for you, which is why I use human design in my business. It's why I help my clients use their human design in their business. So you don't have to be an expert at human design to understand the benefits and how this can work for you. You just really need to tap into your own energy. So before we get too deep into today's episode, I want to share about another manifesting generator hustle. So I have definitely tried to market different ways based on the clients that I have had and or just based on the coaches that I have had, right? Because I have an open head and I have an undefined ajna, which means energy can ebb and flow. And that also means that, not all of my ideas are always my own. And here is kind of a litmus test for how you can kind of test that. One of them can be, if you're going about a strategy that somebody told you and you either get the ick immediately where you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. This doesn't really feel like me, but I'm going to try it anyway. Chances are it probably isn't going to work, right? Because it's not necessarily aligned for you. So there have been plenty of times where I have tried to, I would say market as a manifester, right? Where I'm just informing people and not waiting for a chance to respond, either in things that I see or so on and so forth. so that is definitely, like I think about this a lot in my yoga studio and with my photo business, where, my photo business is at the point where I can go and inform past clients, hey, I have openings this fall for photos. If you would like photos, here's the link. Now, this is kind of twofold for me because manifesting generators do have a bit of informing and responding built into them. However, I will say that my photo business is right now almost strictly referral based only, or, I'll send an email out a couple times a year saying, hey, I have mini sessions available. But that's about all the marketing I do for that business. Now that is more informing. And although it works, it doesn't always work the way I want it to. Now I could change that. However, I don't want to change that. I'm okay with that amount of work for that specific business. Now, if I did that same thing for my coaching and mentoring business, I would be so angry. And I have tried that before. I have tried more of an informing approach, and it's not for me. So I just want to give you a personal example of how it hasn't worked for me. However, when I tap into my response, right, that like, ooh, excited little like, oh my gosh, I get to do this. And like I open up Instagram or Facebook and I go on there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can totally respond to this person. I'm so excited and light up, and follow that little, like trail. That works so much better for me than anything else. Now, I do post consistently. I do show up in different places consistently, and that is also key here. I've discovered that consistency for me looks like posting 3 to 5 days per week. That feels good for me. It aligns for me. I don't feel overwhelmed by it. I still feel joy when I'm creating the content. And that's something that you will really need to look for as you are going about this, as you're figuring this out for yourself, whether that's with my help or without my help. You really have to kind of find that rhythm of your person, right? And then your business can mirror it. So, one thing that I'm going to get into in this episode is that by the end of this episode, I want you to know exactly where to look in your human design chart to create consistency without forcing it. Because if you're still trying to force someone else's strategy, it's probably feeling like that roller coaster I talked about in the beginning of the episode. And really, we don't want that, right? We want consistency. So let's do a little reframing about, okay, so the real reason leads are inconsistent. Inconsistency isn't always a marketing issue. So let's reframe that thought. If your inconsistency is an energetic issue, how can you shift your energy out of like, oh my gosh, I have to post, into, oh my gosh, I get to post. I'm really lit up about this topic, about this thing in my business. Okay, so here are, I'm going to go through each type and just share a little bit about the inconsistency pattern you might be seeing and how you can reframe or realign that. So for, manifesting generators and generators, a common inconsistency pattern, and I've seen this for myself in my businesses. So for Manny-Gens and generators, overcommitting and then burning out and then disappearing and then coming back, right? And then you overcommit, you burn out, you disappear, right? And it's a cycle. And now if you have a defined root, you're probably like, duh, you need to rest. However, for me, I have an undefined root. So I don't always have consistent energy in my root center. And I see this a lot in people who also have undefined root centers, is that they forget to rest. Rest is part of the cycle of work. So now when we think about this for generators and Manny-Gens, if we're going to realign this inconsistency pattern of overcommitment, burnout, disappear, right? You want to start feeling into and responding to those full body yeses, right? And you want to try to batch when your sacral energy is high. Now, the caveat here is that yes, all manifesting generators and generators have a defined sacral. However, 60% of the people who are manifesting generators and generators are emotional manifesting generators or generators, which means you have an extra layer of nuance, or some would call it a complication. I like to refer to it as a nuance because it just gives you a little bit more spice. Okay, so if you're a mani-gen or a generator who is an emotional strategy, right? You are an emotional manifesting generator or generator, you can have the full body yes and still batch when your sacral energy is high. However, you also have to sit with the rise and the fall and back to neutral of your emotions, right? Of that emotional wave. So you have to ride the wave. Now, what this can look like for a manifesting generator or a generator who is an emotional type, right? If you have an emotional authority. Okay, so if you're a manifesting generator or generator with an emotional authority, you're riding that wave of yes for the high, no for the low, and then you're coming back to clarity. So you have to understand when your sacral is giving you that full body yes, that is your cue to, okay, now I need to figure out how do I make decisions? How do I make decisions that are a yes, that are a no? What does that feel like in my body? And oftentimes what that will look like is you saying, hey, I need a little bit to think about this thing. So when you get that idea, when you're like, oh, I found this marketing strategy. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Here it is, blah, 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 blah. I am going to do this. And you get on ChatGPT or whatever you do to, like brainstorm the whole thing. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, ew, I don't like this. This isn't for me. Right? If you're an emotional authority, tell me you have seen this, felt this, because I have friends who are emotional mani-gens and generators, and my son is an emotional manifesting generator. I literally see this play out in real time. He will say yes, and the answer is actually no, or vice versa. And all of a sudden he is mad, right? And he wants to disappear. So that is in a roundabout way, right? What you're looking for if you're a manifesting generator or generator, when it comes to your inconsistency pattern, you have to know what it is first. So yes, it's typically overcommitment, burnout, disappearing, but it also might be, I'm just not ready to show up. I'll be ready to show up when. It could also be that. So the realignment, you have to understand, what does a full body yes mean for you? And how does that play out for you? And this is something that I help my clients do. I help you figure out, like, what does that feel like for me? So if you're a projector, your common inconsistency pattern that you're probably seeing, and again, I have a lot of friends who are projectors, bless their hearts and souls, but they are often spinning their wheels. And they're spinning their wheels, and then they're getting mad or bitter because they're not being recognized for their power, for their genius, right? So a lot of times for projectors, when it comes to lead generation and sales, you want to feel like you're being invited. So if someone asks you, oh, I'd like to learn more about that thing that you're talking about, that is an invitation for you. So again, you need to understand, what is the common inconsistency pattern that you are feeling? Are you feeling like nobody is seeing you? Are you feeling like nobody is even looking at your stuff? Are you feeling like no one's even listening to you, right? So now, in order to realign that, you need to create visibility that invites people to offer that recognition. Oh, wow, you're such a great lead gen specialist. I would love to know more of how to work with you. Oh, wow, you're a great copywriter. I love what you're doing. I would love to learn more about what you do. So those invitations can come from your content, doing lives, doing podcast guesting, being in masterminds, sharing more about what you're doing, and kind of being unattached from the outcome of that. And for my projectors, rest in between those waves, right? Because you're going to, similar to someone with an emotional authority, you're going to have that wave, and then you're going to be like, girl, I need to take a nap, right? Most of my friends who are projectors, we will be deep in a conversation, and then all of a sudden they just peace out. Now, for me, a manifesting generator, I will peace out because I've found another rabbit hole to go down. A projector will peace out because they're like, I'm tired. I'm just going to go lay down and take a nap, which is okay. So for projectors, you have to understand, again, what completes the cycle of rest for you. Whether you have a defined or undefined root it doesn't matter, but you have to understand, okay, how much work can I do before I need to rest or before I need to do something else? Now, manifestors, something that commonly is inconsistent in your pattern is you start big, you're like, wow, here's all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you just disappear, right? It's an Irish goodbye and you're gone. And everyone's like, where'd she go? Where did she go? I don't know. So for my manifestors, understanding how to build rhythms that honor initiations. So, and by initiations, I mean how you can initiate by saying, hey, I have ABC offer ready to go for you. Who wants in? Okay. And allow yourself decompression. You have to communicate your intentions clearly. And that might look like, hey, I have 10 spots open for offer audits this week. Who wants an offer audit? That is an invite, right? Or an initiation to the people who are following you to go, oh my gosh, yeah, sign me up. Okay. But also having some content in between there to really allow for maximum results. Now, I will say, manifestors, reflectors, projectors, you are going to thrive on having someone schedule your post. Whether that's you or someone else, you're going to thrive on having someone schedule your post for you, because then you can set it and forget it, and it's not that big of a deal. But also, you have to understand, how often do I want to show up? And when I'm done explaining reflectors here, I'm going to come back to this point about consistency. So, reflectors, for you, something that is a very, very common inconsistency pattern is constantly changing direction, which sounds hilarious because it feels like a manifesting generator move because, hi, hello, I feel like I'm the queen of switching directions. But also, right, reflectors, because you have so much openness in your body, you are constantly feeling like you're being pulled in 27 different ways. And oftentimes you're just reacting to what's around you. So for you, reflectors, understanding and tracking the lunar cycle, like where is your cycle if you're a woman? And then, like what is the moon doing in the sky? Because understanding your energy at different points in your month, because remember, reflectors, you have about 28 days to make a decision. And I will say that this probably leans more into those bigger decisions, right? But you also have to allow time and space to reflect and mirror back what you're seeing and feeling. And that's often that's not taught to us. We live in a society that is go, 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 go. I need the information yesterday. Why don't I have it already, right? So we don't always allow for that decompression to happen for anyone, right? Even manifesting generators who are like Tasmanian devil going all over the place, we also need time to decompress, especially with an open head and ajna. you need time to decompress, or even if it's undefined, right? Because that decompression allows your thoughts and your strategy, your energy to come back. And what I'll say about all five of the types, most people are trying to market like a generator or a manifesting generator when they're not, which means you're really trying to create energy instead of aligning to it. Now, I talked a little bit about consistency in all five of the types. And what I'll say about consistency is, again, you have to find your rhythm that feels great for you. What feels exciting for you? What feels desirable for you? Like, what is that thing that you're like, yeah, I can totally show up this many times in this many places. I will also say that when you have a business, when you're an entrepreneur, especially an online business that relies on social media to consistently feed your funnel with cool and warm leads, you have to, marketing is like 80 or 90% of your business. I would say it's probably about 80%. Some people might say it's like 90%, but you're going to be out there talking about your business till you're blue in the face. And you're still going to feel like, why don't these people understand this? And really, because there's so much happening. And I don't want this to throw you off or push you away, because there is enough space for everyone. The coaching and course creation, like basically self-help industry, is like I don't know, trillions of dollars at this point per year. So there is always someone buying. There is always someone looking to buy. There is enough for you, because I would bet you probably are looking for, 1 to 5 new clients per month. I promise you there is someone there for you. But you have to be willing to get a little bit uncomfortable and understand that, okay, if I'm posting 3 times a week, that's 3 chances for people to see me on whatever platform or platforms that you have. So if that's longer content, right, like on YouTube or podcasts or wherever that is, you have to understand what and how that algorithm kind of works in order to really make that choice. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to the nth degree and do all the little things, but you have to understand what is consistency for me. So for me, for example, I'm a manifesting generator, okay? I post anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, sometimes 1 to 3 times per day. My goal is to post 3 times per week. That's like the bottom of the barrel, quote unquote, that I want to show up. And I want to show up on Instagram and Facebook. So I know that I need to either create 3 reels or 3 carousels or 3 static posts per week and get them scheduled. Now, with the magic of, being able to record and chop things up I use Riverside to record my podcast. So Riverside does me a solid and gives me magic clips that I can then turn into reels, which makes that easier. So it's much easier for me to then show up through a reel, through a talking head. And then I will take the transcript from my podcast, from those reels, and I will have ChatGPT outline the reel caption as well as a carousel caption, and then I can edit and choose what I want to be where, and that makes my content so easy. So I'm creating one big body of work. I'm creating one podcast per week, and then I'm using different tools to help me figure out, okay, here's what I want. This is what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to do it. And then my job becomes, okay, so I've got that scheduled. I've got that ready to go. Now my job is to have conversations. And I would argue that, yes, you're going to spend time creating content. Yes, you're going to spend time doing these things, but the majority of your marketing needs to be in having conversations, especially if you don't have a lot of clients and you're wanting to sign clients. You are time rich and money poor. And if you are trying to shift that, so you're money rich and quote unquote time poor, conversations are the best and fastest way to figure out, is this person aligned with me? Do they meet the qualifications? Do they want to opt into my offers, right? And if you're not clear on your offers, that's not going to work for you, which again is why I offer free offer audits. It's why I work so much with people on their offer and how they connect with people. So all that to say, how does human design, right? Like, how can we go a little bit deeper in human design? Now, I've talked a little bit about the offer audits that I give to people. And these are free 30-minute conversations where you and I get on Zoom and we talk about your human design chart and we talk about your offer. Okay. So if you go to my new website, so proud of myself, sidebar, the website looks amazing. Can't wait for you to get on the website. So if you go to my website, Maggie Lynn, Lynn Olson. So Maggie Lynn Olson, olson.com/HD chart. Or if you just go to MaggieLynnOlson.com, you're going to click Get Your Human Design Chart. And then you're going to come to a page where you're going to see the 4 things that I look at in every chart before you pull your chart. Okay, so it's a free chart puller. Go there, grab your chart, and have a look at the 4 things that I look at in every human design chart that I pull. Okay, so first of all, I look at your type and strategy, which is what I talked a lot about in today's episode. So your type and strategy are your method for generating consistent opportunities, consistent leads. So following your strategy, your leads will flow. If you fight it, it's going to dry up, right? So if you're a projector out here trying to market like a Manny Gen, it's not going to work. Okay, so that's the first thing. I look at your type and your strategy. The next thing I look at is your throat center, which shows how you communicate. Okay, so if you have a defined throat center, you have a consistent voice, you probably talk often. If it's undefined, your message might shift based on your environment. So it might feel a little bit different online or in scheduled posts than it does in real life. And you want to wait for the resonance before speaking. You want to kind of wait until you're like, ooh, this feels good. Ooh, I feel inspired to. And I will also say, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately because I have friends and mentors who have undefined throats. I have a defined throat. I talk a lot. My daughter has an undefined throat. She talks a lot, right? So I feel like defined and undefined throats talk a lot. My daughter, however, with her undefined throat, she will speak a constant stream of conscious thought. Like whatever is going on, it is coming right out of her mouth. For me, though, I have a defined throat. When I speak, I tend to have a consistency. I command that lead, right? Where it's like, oh, here's what I have to say. This is what I'm saying. Okay, so I just want you to notice that. And that's just like a personal side note that I have noticed about people. Okay, but your throat, again, your throat shows you how you communicate. So when you market in a way that matches your throat expression, consistency will follow. And defined it versus undefined is just one way to kind of look at how your throat expresses itself, right? Like how you express yourself. You can definitely get into all the gates, all the channels, all of that. So that's the second thing. So I look at your type and your strategy. Number 1, I look at your throat. Number 2, like what is lit up in there? You defined, undefined, you have hanging gates, do you have channels, etc. And then I look at your spleen, which might sound odd because I don't see a lot of people talking about this. However, your spleen is guiding your intuitive timing. So everybody has all of these parts in their body. Some of us have definition there, which means there's consistent energy there. We can always call on that energy. Other times it's inconsistent, so it might be a little bit harder to hear or sense or feel. Now, with your spleen, this is your back in the caveman intuition. Okay, so if you are overriding your spleen, which is where your fears and inconsistencies and that that primal instinct lives. Okay. So if you're overriding that, you're probably inconsistently showing up, which is why earlier in the episode, when I talked about figuring out what consistency is for you, that's going to help level out that fear in your spleen. And your spleen gives you intuitive pings, which are whispers, is the best that I can describe it. So I know people, I have read people's charts who are, their authority is splenic. And they are very much, when you give them an option, they will pause and listen and be able to give you feedback. Now, here's where human design can come in clutch for you if you're using it to help your clients. Because if you have a client with splenic authority, you can offer them that time and space. So I was on a coaching call with a client last year, and she was a splenic authority. So I noticed that the first time that I got on a call with her, and I asked her a question, and I instinctively paused, right? I asked the question, paused, and I noticed what happened. She paused. She took in the question, got quiet, thought about it, and then gave her answer. And she consistently did that, which I think is so fascinating, especially when she was making bigger decisions, because when we realized that, we kind of worked with that and figured out like, okay, what does this feel like for you when you do things like this versus like that? And so we followed that little creative instinct of hers. And as she was making decisions, she would have that momentary pause and kind of go inside. Sometimes she would even close her eyes and wait for that ping to happen and then make her choice. And that was so powerful for her. Okay, so before I totally get off track here, right? So we look at your type and strategy. We look at your throat. We look at your spleen center. I do anyway. And then the fourth thing I look at is your Jupiter placements on your human design chart. So I look at both Jupiter placements, your design and your personality. So your, conscious and unconscious, because Jupiter reveals your prosperity code. So if you've ever wondered, like, well, how do I know how I'm going to make money? It's in your Jupiter, right? And that is the energy that literally is attracting money, attracting opportunities. So when you start to embody those gates, you naturally will draw in leads. So, like for me, looking at my personality Jupiter, I understand like what is the gate, and what is, so for me, my personality Jupiter or my conscious Jupiter is the gate of wanting. It's in the root. My unconscious is gate 13. It's in the G center. It's the listener, which are two very interesting gates by themselves. And, if we think about gate 13, which is the listener, and again, this goes back to like throat, right? Your throat. Sometimes with a defined throat, I tend to talk a lot and I don't necessarily give people time to respond. Okay. I am very quick with the information. I love to help people, right? We love a recovering people pleaser. But when I stopped trying to talk first and listened to my audience or my clients, even my children and my spouse, things shifted so much. So I could see it happening in real life. So for me, this looks like being able to ask a question on a mentoring call. Ask the question and shut your mouth, right? And that's what works for me. That's how I experience it in my body for myself. For you, that might look different, and it probably will look different because we are not the same person. But this is why it can be so important to understand and be able to contemplate. And it's also important to reflect upon, okay, here's what happens when I do this. If I want to change that outcome, what does it look like if I do this or that? And that's how you can start to shift and ebb and evolve. So, if we're looking at consistency by design, I want to give you a couple realignment prompts for your week. Okay, so I have 3 here, and I would love it if you slid right into my DMs. Let me know the answer for one or all of these. Okay, so the first, what am I trying to force that no longer feels alive or aligned for me? What am I trying to force that no longer feels aligned? Number 2, where can I respond instead of initiate? Now, for manifestors, this might be a little bit of a challenge for you because you're so used to informing. However, as a manifestor, you do need to hear what your people are responding to. So where can I respond instead of initiate? And then number 3, which part of my chart, type, throat, spleen, Jupiter, might be asking for a recalibration? Okay, so what part of my chart might be asking for a recalibration? So if you want, go and grab your chart, whether you have it done or whether you go to MaggieLynnOlsen.com, click get your free HD chart, pull your chart. Let me know what this is for you. I am so curious. What part of your chart might be asking for a recalibration? I'm curious, where can you respond instead of initiate? I'm curious, what are you forcing that no longer feels alive or aligned? Now, if this episode hit home and you're ready to, again, find your own rhythm, like I just said, go ahead and grab your free human design chart at MaggieLynnOlsen.com. Go ahead and click get my free HD chart, and I'll show you which parts of your design affect your consistency. And then I would love to invite you to book an offer audit. Bring your current offer and bring your chart so that we can map out your design to your lead generation strategy, and so that I can give you the 3 things to look at when you're trying to clarify your offer. So I hope to see you on an offer audit. Again, I opened up my schedule, so I have tons of space for you to come in and get your free offer audit. I am so excited about these offer audits because they're so powerful and they give you things that you can go and change right now that aren't like, let's revamp everything. They're little changes you can start to implement right now that maximize your results. And then I want you to make sure you're following, you subscribe, you like, you comment, all the things, share this, because next week we are diving into the second biggest pain point that most women entrepreneurs have, and I bet you can guess what it is. Because it's something people talk about so often. Next week, we're going to dive into niching down, which I'm calling offer clarity by design, right? So if you've ever felt stuck about picking a niche or second guessing your program, you're going to love next week's episode as well, because I'm talking all about how to niche and not feel like you're boxed into a niche. I can just feel some people's cringe when I say you need to niche. However, I will say it. That is a hill I will die on. You have to have a niche. You need to have an ideal client, someone who you want to serve, and you have to know what you're going to help them with. Because yes, I do truly believe that you can help anybody with anything. However, you have things that you are really passionate about. You have things that you are a genius about. You have things that you do a specific way that people also want to do. And that is your magic sauce. And there's a million ways to talk about those things. So I'm going to talk about how I chose lead generation and sales in the business coaching, business mentoring niche. I'm going to talk about that next week. So I can't wait to see you. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends, take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram, tag me at Maggie Lynn, Lynn, mentoring, and slide into my DMs and let me know what resonates. Answer those questions for me. I can't wait to connect with you, and I will see you all next week.